Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. And now, Tider Insider TV.
I see a lot of hunger in this team. The biggest thing at Alabama, if you don't have hunger, you're not going to start next year.
You want to always get what's out there for you. You want to do more, achieve more. You don't want to be satisfied with just doing what you've already done.
The national championship was like chasing a chicken. You know, we caught the chicken. Now it's time to let it go and chase it again.
And that's a look back at Media Days. Eddie Jackson chasing that chicken. Good evening, everybody, and welcome in to Tider Insider TV, presented each and every week by Buffalo Rock. And we're not chasing chicken, although I do like it. But when I have chicken, you know what I usually like to have with it? Pepsi. Tonight, we've got ice-cold Diet Pepsi. Rodney, I think it's going to be really, really cold tonight. I stuck it in the freezer for a few minutes.
It's frozen.
Just perfect, just little ice chunks. So remember, the next time you're at your local grocer, pick up some outstanding Pepsi products. They're cold and refreshing, and they will keep you in a great mood all summer long during this hot weather. Like I said, alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. Welcome in. That chicken is always changing at Alabama, Rodney. New faces coming and going. And let's start with one of those that is moving on. Freshman linebacker Christian Bell, gray-shirted in 2015, meaning he did not enroll in school. So he enrolled in January, but the former Hoover standout is already heading elsewhere. Now, he comes from a great high school program, went through the recruiting process, sat out, and enrolled in January with a full slate of eligibility ahead of him. Are you surprised that he's given up so soon on Alabama and going somewhere else?
You know, I had heard rumblings of it, so I can't say that I'm surprised. I thought this might be coming, to be honest with you. You know, what his specifics are for why he's moving on, I really don't know, but you know, I guess he felt like his opportunities might be better elsewhere.
Now, his options, as I said, he's got a full slate of eligibility ahead of him because he did great shirt. He was not enrolled in school in the fall. He could transfer to another Division 1A school and sit out a year, or he could transfer down to the FCS level, known as, you know, used to be known as 1AA, say at Jacksonville State, or even a Division 2 school like North Alabama, and be eligible immediately. What he'll do, we'll have to wait and see, but we certainly wish him the best. He's a good football player and a good young man. Just didn't work out here at Alabama. A lot of talented players ahead of him.
Yeah, and again, he was young, and I think, as I said, I think possibly he saw that maybe he would have an opportunity to play more quickly at another place.
All right, Christian Bell is going, but two more young men are coming. Commitments for the class of 2017. Junior college cornerback Javante Dean from Glenn College in Texas, originally from the state of Florida, and Coleman High School offensive lineman Hunter Brannon. Now, you may not recognize the name Brannon, but his sister, before she got married, was a Brit, and you certainly recognize the name Britt. More on Hunter in a moment, but let's start with this Javante Dean, because I got to tell you, Rodney, I called you up after the commitment, and I said, man, this guy has got some tools. I mean, he is big, he's physical, he can cover. Then you told me a comparison that you've heard, which really opened my eyes.
Well, I think, you know, again, he's a young guy. You like to see people develop, but I've talked to some people on the junior college level who told them that he reminds him of a young Richard Sherman.
High praise.
Yeah.
You know, the thing about him coming out of high school, Rodney, he probably wasn't a guy that Alabama would have looked at, but he's an example of a guy that went to junior college, improved himself. Now he's the #1 ranked cornerback in the country. And let's be honest, he may come in here with a chance to start next season. As good as Alabama is in the secondary, they're recruiting him with the idea of him coming into play.
Yeah, they recruit a guy like that as a junior college player thinking he's going to help immediately, and they certainly think Javante Dean can do that. You talked about when he came out of high school in Homestead, Florida, Gary. Watch him run this guy down. Watch this. Is that George Teague or what?
That's speed.
Wow.
Can't coach that.
You know, but Gary, you look at a guy like Javante Dean in high school. He's number 123rd rated player in the state of Florida. And look, Florida has a lot of talent. But this isn't a guy that was really highly regarded, 2- or 3-star type player, whatever it might have been. But, you know, as you mentioned, went to junior college. Now he's really developed into an outstanding player. He has great speed, as you mentioned, long arms. You know, this guy has an opportunity to be a fantastic player.
You know, he kidded with his teammates in high school that he was going to play at Alabama. He really didn't think there was a chance of it happening, but look at this. It shows you, if you got a dream and you can play, Alabama will find you. That's a big pickup. All right, now to Hunter Brannon, because, again, you probably don't recognize the name, but you recognize Wesley Britt, Justin Britt, Taylor Britt. They all played at Alabama. Brannon is their nephew. Their sister is his mom. But that's not, let's be clear on that. I just pointed that out to give you some reference. That's not why he's getting a scholarship. This is a young man that's grown 2 inches, Wesley was telling me on my radio show, and 25 pounds just in the last 6 or 7 months. He's a comer. He's nasty. That's a compliment to an offensive lineman. He went to the Auburn camp and impressed there, and then came to the Alabama camp and really impressed Coach Key here.
Well, I think the bloodlines do matter, Gary. I think because of he's been around the program. He knows what it takes. Obviously, Wesley Britt was a fantastic offensive lineman here. Taylor Britt, Justin Britt, 2 guys that played here as well, all the Brett brothers. And so I think being acclimated to the program, understanding what it's all about, certainly is part of it. But, you know, he earned the scholarship on his own, there's no doubt. He had a really good camp, as you mentioned. And, you know, when you talk about Hunter Brannon, he's a guy that, you know, down the road could really project as an interior player, whether it's a center or guard.
You know, and this has been asked me, and I know it's been asked you, so I asked Wesley on my radio show. Because of the family ties, because he's not a really, quote-unquote, highly rated player, is there a chance he could gray shirt? Wesley told me the understanding right now is that he'll be a part of the 2017 class, but certainly with the family ties, if Alabama got in a bind, that might be a player that you could ask to delay his enrollment. But he's a good football player, but, you know, you have some options there with all the family ties.
Well, you know, and again, I think when you look at the situation, I don't know what the agreement is. You know, sometimes usually those things are worked out previously, so it would be difficult for me to comment on that. But, you know, sometimes these things are worked out in advance where if there's a full class that, you know, one guy would agree to gray shirt. So, you know, could that be a possibility? Yes, it could, but I'm not sure about that.
You watch his feet, he's athletic. Another thing, he plays at Coleman, good program. He's also got Justin working with him individually. But Wesley says he's up at 5 in the morning, Rodney, working every day. He wants it bad. That means a lot. Well, still to come on Tider Insider Television, an update on the condition of Alabama's Director of Athletics, Bill Battle. Plus, Las Vegas odds have Alabama as the favorite to win the national championship, but several teams are right on the Crimson Tide's heels, including the team that finished second last year. In fact, should Alabama be the favorite? Maybe it should be Clemson with that quarterback, man. Deshaun Watson's big time. We'll discuss that and more next on TITV. Plus, we'll get to your phone calls, emails, and tweets. There's the phone number on the screen, 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Email us at the address or reach out to us on Twitter using the hashtag TITV. This is Katarina's last night with us. Send a tweet. She would love to answer a tweet and get it to us. We'll be back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV will return right after this break. Here's some really good news. UA Director of Athletics Bill Battle completed his treatment for multiple myeloma. He is expected to be back at work on a limited basis, if not so already. The 74-year-old Battle said the outcome of the treatment was extremely positive. It's just great news. And I'll tell you one thing, you would never, if you didn't know, you'd never guess he was 74 years old.
You sure would.
All right, welcome back to Tider Insider TV. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. According to Las Vegas odds makers, Alabama's the favorite to win the national championship again this season. However, Crimson Tide head coach Nick Saban, he don't like that kind of talk, Rodney. He's not in agreement with the odds makers. Saban said he thinks Clemson should be the favorite, based largely, of course, on the return of that quarterback Deshaun Watson who torched the Tide. Clemson head coach Dabo Swinney spoke at ACC Media Days last week, and he said his team is ready to take the final step this year.
What we did last year is not going to win for us this year. You know, we got to go prove it and earn it all over again with our daily commitment. And, you know, we start over. New team, new chemistry, new leadership, pay the price all over again, and with a humble and hungry spirit. But, you know, we didn't win the game. We finished with some regrets. You know, we want to finish with no regrets.
So the former Bama walk-on wide receiver from Pelham High School who earned a scholarship has now earned his way into the ranks of one of the premier head coaches in the country. And they've got a great football team. Now, Alabama, as we mentioned, Rodney, is the defending champion. They bested Clemson in the championship game. The Tide, according to the Vegas odds makers, is the favorite. But, you know, let's talk about who should be the favorite. I mean, I understand what Alabama did last year and they've done over the last few years carries a lot of weight, but let's start with Clemson. When you look at that offense with Deshaun Watson coming back, I can see why Coach Saban said that. You know, we know how important a quarterback is, a big-time quarterback, and they've got the best in the country.
Yeah, they do, and they should be fantastic offensively, you mentioned. And, you know, my question on them would be, what about defensively? They lost some guys up front. You know, how quickly can they recover from that? Dabo Swinney's done an outstanding job, he and his staff, of recruiting players. So they're going to have guys that will be able to step in and step up defensively, but at the same time, You know, it's going to be really interesting to see how they kind of build upon last year, Gary. I think that's one of the key things to having big-time success as a program is how do you build on what you've done. And they, as Sweeney said, Coach Sweeney said, they took that step to the national championship last year. Can they take the next step this year?
All right, Alabama is the favorite by the odds makers, but you know the team that the most money is being wagered on right now?
Who's that?
Michigan.
Really?
Jim Harbaugh's crew. And I'm going to tell you something. Alabama and Michigan played back in 2012?
12, yes.
And Alabama pasted them 42-14. But, of course, that was under Brady Hoke. And now when you look at this Michigan team with Jim Harbaugh, they got a lot back. They've got a lot of players back. They've got a coach who understands how to win. Is this Michigan team that has not been able to beat Ohio State all of a sudden a national championship?
Well, that'll be another interesting story, you know, the step they take in year 2 under Jim Harbaugh. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I think Ohio State beat them at Michigan last year and pretty handily.
Yes, they did.
I know they beat them. I couldn't remember exactly where it was, but Ohio State just handled them. And, you know, I know Ohio State's lost a lot of players, but Urban Meyer's done a fantastic job of recruiting. That's the first thing they've got to do is they've got to be able to beat Michigan State and Ohio State.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the Buckeyes. You know, 2 years ago, we know what they did to Alabama. We know Urban Meyer. I mean, he, in terms of a talent evaluator and knowing how to build a program, he's probably second behind Nick Saban. You never count them out. In the Big Ten, even with losing a lot of guys, they have to be considered a national championship contender.
Well, they lost a lot of those players that won that national championship a couple of years ago. Several of them declared early. But he's recruited well, as we've said, and you know, this is really kind of Urban Meyer's type of team. What I mean by that is he seems to play a little bit better when maybe people aren't expecting quite as much, like they did a couple of years ago, went in with the third-string quarterback and won the national championship. And you know, we'll see, but they should be really talented. So they're going to be a very interesting team.
Rodney, now the team in the SEC, other than Alabama, that's getting a lot of national championship talk, and that, of course, is LSU. Now, they've lost 5 in a row to the Crimson Tide. We know that. But roster-wise, man, they're loaded. I mean, you know, defensively, they're salty. Brandon Harris, I think, is going to be improved as a quarterback. They've got great receiving threats, and they've got Leonard Fournette behind a big, powerful offensive line.
Well, I agree with you. When you look at LSU, if they can't do it this year, you have to start wondering when will they be able to do it. Yeah. So, you know, Brandon Harris should be a lot better at the quarterback spot, you would think. He should be more comfortable. They should have a tremendous running game, Leonard Fournette. But, hey, they've got another outstanding running back named Darius Geis as well. You mentioned the receivers. If they can run the football, which they will be able to, and run it well, play action pass, Brandon Harris can find receivers like that guy right there, Malachi Dupree. And defensively, I think this was the hire of the offseason to me, was when they got defensive coordinator, or one of the top hires anyway, Dave Aranda from Wisconsin, who did an outstanding job last year. I think his defense may have led the country to one of the top 2 or 3 in scoring defense. We know Alabama was pretty successful in that first game against them, but he's got a lot of talent down there in Baton Rouge, Gary. I think that's a big step up for them at defensive coordinator with Dave Aranda.
And, of course, though, the team that they're still all chasing is Alabama. Well, coming up, a pair of former Crimson Tide players have new NFL squads, while a national championship hero is back on the market. We'll have the details. And next, your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Again, the information right there on the screen on how you can get in touch with us. Phone lines are open, so call in now at 205-348-9882. We'll be back after this. NFL update on the New England Crimson Tide. Did I say that? I mean the New England Patriots, but, you know, Bill Belichick likes former Crimson Tigers like Vinny Cincinnati. I mean, the kid can play. If he stays healthy, I mean, especially on special teams, he is a dynamic guy. Waived by the Saints after an arm injury, then a knee injury. The Patriots have picked him up. He'll join up there with Cyrus Jones and Dante Hightower and Michael Williams. And another former Alabama safety is on the move as well. Nick Perry will join the Philadelphia Eagles. He signed with the Ravens last year as an undrafted free agent, spent the season on the practice squad. Now he'll get a chance to make the Eagles roster. And Richard Mullaney is still going to be looking for a chance in the NFL. He was waived by the Texans before the start of training camp. He had dealt with some injuries in some of their off-season workouts, but still a chance to catch on with another team. Had a great year at wide receiver in his one season with Alabama. All right, those are some NFL updates, including the former Tiders. Now let's get right to our phone lines tonight and go to Bessemer to talk with John. John, you're first up on TITV. Welcome in.
Gary, Ryan, what's going on, man?
Well, you know it, pal. What's up, John?
Hey, man, I'm trying to find out who's going to be our quarterback this year, and I heard about y'all talk about Alabama's going to be favored to be winning the national championship. I hope we do it, but I don't know. But we got Auburn, we got Tennessee, and we got all them good teams coming up this year.
Yeah,
We might
John.
win them, one might not. Later.
All right, brother. Yeah, they got them every year. They play Auburn, Tennessee, LSU every year. But on the quarterbacks, John, that's the question everybody's asking, Rodney. We don't know. I do think this, as I said on my radio show today, I think things can change in fall camp. I do think regardless of what the coaches are saying, Saban and Kiffin, they've got a pecking order going into fall camp as far as these quarterbacks are concerned. But they're going to let them fight it out and see what happens.
No, I think so. I think when you look at it, John, it ended up like we expected with Cooper Bateman. Probably had during spring practice heading into fall camp. There's no question about that. I think that his ability to manage the offense is probably a little bit better right now. But, you have some young guys, Jalen Hurts, Blake Barnett, a redshirt freshman Barnett, and a true freshman in Hurts, who are certainly going to be in the middle of the competition. Gary, and, of course, David Cornwell's been around a few years too. But I really say watch out for those two young freshmen. Yeah,
there's going to be a lot of fun covering that story. How many more times are we going to get asked that question? Who's going to be the quarterback? All right, we may not find out until September 3rd, for that matter. All right, let's go to Gadsden and talk with Don. Don, you're next up on the program. What's up, man?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Doing great.
Hey, man, I heard about the guy y'all said that was transferring, man.
Right.
Is that the same guy that was making all them plays in the 8-day game?
He played some in the 8-day game. I don't think he had a standout 8-day game, Don. I don't know who you might be talking about.
I think he's talking about Tim Williams messing up the game, as Coach Saban said.
Yeah.
No, and Rashawn Evans had an outstanding game as well.
But Christian Bell played some, Don. But, I think Tim Williams was the guy that was so disruptive coming off the edge. He's back. He'll be a senior, and so is Rashawn Evans. But thanks for the phone call there in Gadsden. Marvin in Tuscaloosa, you hold on, man. We're going to get to you. We got to get to a break, got to pay some bills, and we're going to go to Alaska still before we're done in this show because Alabama football player in Alaska. Stay tuned to find out what that's all about. And more phone calls, emails, and tweets. So keep holding there. We'll get to you, Marvin, and we'll be back with more phone calls as well right here on TITV. Stay with us. Former Alabama and NFL football star George Teague was one of 4 former NFL players working at a football camp recently in Kenai, Alaska. It was the first trip to Alaska for all of them. Teague was joined by some of his former Cowboys teammates, Tony Casillas, Flozell Adams, and Joaquin Iglesias. Only 10 players from Alaska have made it to the NFL, including one from Kenai. Teague explains why he was motivated to take the long flight to the 49th state.
There's so many places that are that we can influence people on with how to play the game maybe better. We know there's some good sports up here, some great athletes up here, but anytime we can bring our expertise in, small town, be able to just interact with the community, it's a blessing to us.
Now, we don't air too many stories from Alaska, but you know what? When George Teague goes to the 49th state, Tider Insider TV is there as well. That's a pretty cool story. Well, we're going to get right back to the phone lines. Marvin has been holding on in Tuscaloosa. Thanks for holding, Marvin. How are you? Go ahead, Marvin.
Hey, how you doing, Gary? Roll Tide, man.
Yeah, man.
I have a question, man. I had seen a picture of sophomore running back Bo Scarborough on social media.
Right.
And that was comparing him to a defensive lineman. So my question is, I want to know, is he too big to play running back, or just the kind of running back Nick Saban likes to have and still can, to bruise the defense with?
Right, Marvin. I think Nick Saban likes to have really good running backs, whether they're really big or they're really fast, just combinations. But he's not too big to play running back. I mean, you look at Derrick Henry last year, you look at Fournette at LSU. As long as you can run the ball. Now, if he got to the point where he was too big to advance that football, then they might look at putting him in another position. But he's always been muscular. He's gifted with great genes, great genetics, and he works out hard too. But he's not too big to play running back.
No, I saw the picture. I think he's talking about Gary, and he certainly did look mighty big there. He was about 242 at the time. I think he's down to about 228 right now, and he was lean at 242. I mean, he looked like he could even get bigger. But they really evaluate. They do a great job of evaluating what is the optimum playing weight for these guys in terms of their speed and quickness and ability to move around. And I think 228, 230 is optimum for Bo Scarborough, and that's where he's at.
Well, anxious to see him. Everybody is. All right, let's go to Birmingham and talk to Reg. Reg, what's going on, man?
Well, I've gotten in. I really enjoy you two guys' program. You ought to make it an hour instead of 30 minutes.
Thank you, sir.
I'm a graduate of Tennessee, but I've always been the most rabid Alabama fan over Tennessee even. And I get irritated when I read all of these magazines after Alabama's won a national championship or something. They lose all these players, and the magazines all rate them number one. They don't know what's on Alabama's team. Bama is really starting out with, I mean, just like a team that's just starting out. I mean, they don't know what they're going to do.
You're right, Reg. You make a good point, Reg. I'll tell you this: a lot of the preseason polls are and predictions are based on what happened last year. We know that. But to your point about losing good players, and I'm with you, and that's why we said maybe Alabama shouldn't be the favorite. But they got a lot of good football players coming back too, Reg. And so I think the hype is they're deserving of it. Now, are they going to win the national championship? Heck, man, we're going to have to see. I mean, it's hard to win 4 in 7 years. We may not see that again in our lifetime.
Yeah, incredible stretch.
But I do think Alabama's really good, like we said earlier, and they deserve to be in the conversation.
Well, I personally, right now, Reg would agree with you in terms of I wouldn't pick them number one if I put a preseason ballot together. But they're stacked defensively, Gary. They've got a lot of players on defense. That's where it starts for Alabama. And I think offensively, a lot of guys to replace, but they've got good players that are coming up.
Yeah, thanks, Reg, for the phone call. Frank, sorry, man, we don't have time to get to you. Try to get in next week. We'll be back to wrap up TITV right after this. With me. All right, Team USA took gold at the Women's Softball World Championships. Former Alabama stars Jacqueline Traina and Haley McClenny played major roles at the tournament in Canada. Traina allowed just 1 earned run in 14 innings, while McClenny hit .375 with a 3-run homer in the championship game against Japan. She also threw a runner out at the plate in the title game. Thanks to head coach Patrick Murphy, Alabama softball, for that video. All right. Big story tomorrow in Birmingham. The Alabama men's basketball non-conference schedule will be released. We'll cover that for WVUA 23. Where our beautiful shirts and ties tonight provided, as always, by the Locker Room in downtown Tuscaloosa, home of the original elephant wear. Man, I tell you, this is a great store. But if you can't get by, you can shop online. Go to locker-room.biz and get hooked up with some of that great Locker Room menswear. All right, for Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. We will have the program back on in a replay for you tonight at 10:30, or you can get it at our website, WVUA23.com. Good night, everyone.